So when we're talking about the alcohol or substance abuse within the relationship, it still all relates back to there are three core tenets of a relationship that have to be present. And those three things are emotional safety and security, mutual admiration and respect, and a shared vision and goal.
Well, hello, lovely listeners. Today, I have the honour of speaking with Cody Butler. Cody is out in Australia, terrible accent, sorry. He's the founder of Better Marriage and the creator of the marriage recovery process. So he teaches couples how to repair their intimacy, restore communication, and rebuild their marriage, which is a massively needed service. I think we can all agree on that one. He's also #1 best-selling author of Cut the BS and No Nonsense Guide to Happiness. That sounds cool. Been featured on Fox, ABC, NBC. You've helped thousands of couples to date. And you also specialize in helping men that have suffered with substance abuse. And I know that's something that's close to your heart. So keen to hear more about that. And well, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. It's an absolute pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, you too, Mel. Thank you. After a lot of back and forth, we finally made it here, the world apart. And yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, I always love, and the listeners love, to hear everybody's backstory. We all like the hero's journey, you know, where have you come from, and how you've got to where you've got to, and what was the younger Cody like, and what's Cody like today? So over to you, and I'll ask some questions in between if it's
appropriate. Yeah. Look, there's been multiple versions of myself, which I think is a great thing, especially to bring up on a podcast like this. It's like what the younger version of myself was very different to the middle version and very different to the version now, and probably different to the end version. And I think it's really important to understand that your destination is not determined at any point. As long as there's breath in your body and a pulse pumping through your body, it's like you have the ability to choose who you are and what you are. And I think the younger version of myself was much more directed by circumstance, and I was responding to circumstance, whereas the later version of myself is I'm much more in control, and I'm starting to create my my circumstance through my choices. So I guess to succinctly put that, the younger version of myself, my choices were made through circumstance, and now my circumstance is made through choices. And I think that's probably the big difference. Specifically, some of the things that's really happened in my life to shape where I am. I went through a series of failures, like very good successes ending in very big failures. So it's like huge success resulting in huge failure in my younger years. So, this massive roller coaster of ups and downs, and I ended up very depressed. I dealt with it very badly. I had some very successful businesses that ended up being very unsuccessful businesses and left me with massive amounts of debt. And then I had some very successful relationships that turned into very horrible relationships that left me in a very emotionally distressed situation. And to cut the long story short is I found myself around 2005. I just couldn't get out of bed. I'd made a series of bad choices, and I'd compounded those bad choices with bad choices. I decided to handle the mistakes that I made by making more mistakes, which was drug and alcohol abuse and getting into more bad relationships. And to cut the long story short, I wound up in 2005. I just couldn't get out of bed. I was so depressed. I was so beaten down by life and so beaten up that I literally couldn't get out of bed. And
Cody, what were the you said you had some successful businesses and then not successful businesses. So how did you start? When you were left school or uni or whatever you did, what were the dreams and aspirations, and what did you end up doing?
So my dream when I was in school was to move to America. So I'm from the UK.
Oh, right.
And my dream was always, I just wanted to move to America. We went on a few family holidays to America when I was in my younger years. I think when I was 12 or 13 and then 15 or 16, we went on some family holidays, and I just fell in love with America. So my dream really was to get to America, and that was the driving ambition. How I got there wasn't really much of a concern to me. So all of the things that I did really just became a byproduct of the goal of really wanting to get to America. So I had my visa options were very limited. I had to get the only visa option really was a student visa, So I had to get a student visa. Well, to get a student visa, I had to get a scholarship to a university, which was very challenging because this was in 1990, 1991. It's like there was no internet there. So I had to literally find just a big book of universities and go through various scholarships programs that each one of those universities had, and literally reach out to them manually from the UK by good old-fashioned snail mail and communicate back and forth. It was a massive task, but it just goes to show, like, if the determination is there, the outcome is there as well.
Just interestingly, what part of the UK are you from?
Oxford area.
Oh, okay. I'm in Coventry, so not too far.
Not a million miles away.
Yeah. Cool. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, so really everything I did really became a byproduct of that. So initially my goal was to get to the US. Once I got to the US, I had to do that through a student visa. Once I got to the US, my goal was to stay there. So I did that through various forms of employment. I ended up in the restaurant industry. Again, just out of that's where I was able to get the requirements met to stay in the US. So I had no desire to go into the restaurant industry. I just, by default, because that's what was required for my goals, that's what happened. And I ended up being really quite good at it, and I ended up buying a restaurant, and then I became a restaurateur, and that restaurant was very successful. But I think I was 23, 24 at the time, but I became overly confident, and I became cocky, and I became arrogant, and I thought that I was invincible, and I just couldn't make a bad decision, and I proved myself wrong.
So what part of America, and what restaurant was it?
So I started out in Florida, and then I went to Kentucky, moved to Kentucky. And it was Papa John's Pizza was where I started out. Mm-hmm. And then I ended up buying a Domino's pizza, which if I'd have just stuck with that, like, my life would have been a different story, right? We probably wouldn't be having this conversation, but I decided to buy a car dealership or invest in, part owner in a car dealership. And it's like, I knew nothing about cars. I knew nothing about car dealerships. I just thought, well, I'm good at business.
Yeah.
Yeah, natural progression, right? Natural progression. So I ended up getting involved with the wrong person, making a lot of bad decisions, and getting myself into a lot of trouble, and basically ending up with approximately $500,000 worth of debt that was looming over me. So that was very, very challenging. That was a very challenging situation. I did ultimately finally get out of that. I was in a relationship at the time, and when all of the trimmings left, so did she. When all of the trimmings left, so did she. So it was a great thing, really, because I learned that I'm not as smart as I think I am, and people are not staying around me because I'm as wonderful as I think I am. It's like I had some misconceptions that were going on that looking back on the journey really was a necessary part of forming who I am and what I am and where I am today, which is a good thing. But at the time, obviously, like, I'd lost everything. I'd lost the business. I'd lost the girl. I'd lost the money. And the way I dealt with that was, as most 24-year-olds probably would, which was just to drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
And I'd say the time of my life. I was absolutely miserable, but I was just high and drunk for the next 5 years, probably.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So what, so when you obviously, you lost your businesses, but you managed to get rid of the debt somehow, but you still stayed.
Barely.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Barely.
You still stayed drunk or high for 5 years. So something was funding that. So were you working at that point, or? Yeah,
I'd gone to, this is where my productivity, this is the thing, is as you're going through these phases, it's like, well, the same with whether you're in a drug and alcohol situation, or whether you're in a relationship situation where your life is failing, basically, your productivity goes to zero. Like, you can function, but barely. And it really is like, it's bare minimum, right? It's like, okay, well, I need this amount of money to eat. I need this amount of money to get by. And it became a case of, okay, well, like, all aspirations left me. My aspiration was to eat and sleep. That was it, have somewhere to eat, somewhere to sleep. And that became my aspirations. And it's like, whatever, doesn't matter what condition you're in. I believe that whatever your minimum conditions are, they're going to get met. That's really one thing about life. We rise up to our lowest standards. We don't raise up to our highest aspirations. Whatever our lowest standards are is where we wind up. Whatever we're willing to tolerate in our life is what shows up And the secret really is you got to raise your standards and go, I no longer tolerate that. But what I was willing to tolerate as my lowest standard was very low at that point, and it didn't require very much effort. You know, a part-time job really sort of took care of. I was essentially unemployed at that point. I moved in with a friend. I was sleeping in his kid's bedroom. Yeah, he worked nights. I worked. You know, he worked at nights. I worked during the day. So
yeah,
I'd sleep in his bed at night, and then he'd come home, and then I'd sleep in the bed I just slept in. It was like, yeah, a lovely situation, right?
so so what sort of snapped you out of it? Was there like a defining moment, a pivotal moment?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was around the 2005 mark where I'd just gone through another relationship had just failed. And that's what really like kind of sent me back into the darkness again. And that's why I was in the state that I was in. And it wasn't a great relationship at all. She wasn't nice to me. She didn't treat me well. And I just thought I was laying in that bed depressed, and I thought, what would I have to believe to be this upset? What belief would I have to be this upset? Because she's cheated on me at least once that I know of. So, and I'm guessing probably more times. And she's done damage to. I was in music college at the time. I'm like, she's done damage. She's done damage to college. She's done damage to my work. She's done damage to my relationships. She's damaged every aspect of my life. She's caused personal damage. Yet here I am in this dire state over this. What would I have to believe to feel this way? And the only conclusion that I could come up with was, this is all I deserve.
Yeah.
She's the best I deserve. She's the best I'm ever going to do. This is what I deserve. And I've lost the best thing I'm ever going to have. That's what I would have to believe to be in this state, because it's not what we think we believe. It's our subconscious beliefs that are driving us. And the way we get to those subconscious beliefs is to ask ourselves, what would I have to believe to feel this way? What would I have to believe to be in this situation? And then the next question is that true? So this question popped into my head. What would I have to believe to be this upset? And it's like, well, this is the best she's the best I'm ever going to do. And it's like, well, is that true? And it's like, that's a ridiculous thing to believe. That's absolutely ridiculous. It's like, I reject that belief. I reject that thought. And the second I rejected it, it's like the healing came at that point. Yeah. It's like I'm in this state because of a belief that isn't true. And as soon as light is shone into that darkness, I always say it, like, with clients who are in a dark place, the solution to your darkness is light. If you turn the light on in a dark room, how many times out of 100 is the darkness defeated?
Yeah.
How many times out of 100? Darkness cannot withstand light. And if you're in darkness right now, emotionally, physically, the way out of that is to shine light on it. And the light is truth. And when you ask yourself the question, what would I have to believe? And then, is this true? The light is shone onto that lie, and now you're set free from it. And it's like, I deserve way better than this. In fact, if that's the best I can do, I'm better off where I am.
Were you spiritual at that point?
Yeah.
You were, yeah.
Yeah, I always have been. I always have been from the youngest age. I had that sense of connection to a larger, bigger thing. Cool.
Yeah. I mean, I can hear it obviously in everything you're saying. And I forgot you're a muso. What are you a singer? Do you play?
Yeah. So I play guitar. That's how I met my wife, was at music college, and she's a singer and I'm a guitar player, and we came together and started tearing the pub scene up in southeast England.
Nice. Yeah, there's a lot of similarities here, because I'm a singer and my partner's the guitarist. So I joined his band in '97. It was called Champagne Hedgehog, and it was a rock pop originals. And we had a bit of success. We did a lot of gigging and recording and stuff. But we were never together. We got together 2 years ago. We've just literally celebrated our 2nd anniversary. So we've been friends. Oh, wow. We've been friends now 25 years. It's bonkers. So that's funny, that is. So you've been with your wife since music college.
Yeah. I always say, like, the guitar player always gets the girl, always. I used to teach guitar, man, and I was like, parents would come to me, they go, I don't know what you're telling my kids, but they're so motivated. They just practice all the time. They're like, I don't know what you're doing, but it's working. And I said, yeah, I was thinking, I just tell them the guitar player always gets the girl. I'm like, I know what a 15-year-old boy wants. I know how to motivate them.
Oh, brilliant. And yeah, because so when I was reading through your website, it said you went from earning 10,000 a year to seven, being a muso to seven figures. So anyway,
well, that's again, sorry, again, that's necessity, right? That's raising my standards. And I've got lots of stories, right? Like there are multiple versions of myself that are running most of the time.
Yeah.
As a restaurateur, I'm a musician, I'm a business coach, I'm a marriage coach. It's like I don't believe that we are one thing. It's like you're probably a great singer, but you're obviously great other things as well. You've got many gifts, and I think it's not wise or good for us to pigeonhole ourselves into one area and say, I'm a business coach, or I'm a muso, or I'm a marriage coach. It's like there's multiple versions. I'm a father to my children, I'm a husband to my wife, I'm a coach to my clients, I'm a son to my parents. I'm multiple things to multiple people, and I don't really have one identity that I identify with. That's why when people ask me, what do you do, Cody? I'm like, my wife always looks at me and I'm like, I don't really know how to answer that question. I mean, like I'd say the real question, like when someone says, what do you do? The real question is, how much money do you make? So you just want to know that, and then I don't have to tell you. How about I just tell you how much money I make, and then I don't have to answer the question of like, and pigeonhole myself into one certain thing.
So going back to the pivotal moment, so you basically, you have this strong thought that got you questioning things, and you had the insight and the spiritual awareness to be able to see it for what it was in that moment.
Yeah.
So then what happened next?
So that's where like the rapid improvement happened. So I'd kind of stumbled upon the formula at that point, and I don't know, I'm not saying I'd come up with this or anything like that, but it was revolutionary. I came up with it in my life. And even if I'd heard it somewhere before, it was that point where it became real to me. It's like, that was the formula. It's like, what would I have to believe to be in this person? What would I have to believe to do this? What would I have to believe to behave this way? And just looking at every aspect of my life and realizing that most of my life is operating on the basis of lies, and really uncovering. Like I'll give you an example. Like I use this with my marriage coaching clients. So when I was younger, I was about 5 years old. My father used to come home from work. I lived in a little tiny village in Buckinghamshire, and I used to walk home from school. I was 5 or 6, and my dad used to come home from work the same way. He came in one day, and he was holding some gloves, a pair of gloves. They were my gloves, and they'd obviously fallen out of my pocket, or I dropped them or something on the way home from school. And he goes, "Who's are these your gloves, Cody?" I said, "Yeah, they are." And he goes, "Do you know where I found these?" I'm like, "No, side of the road on the way home." "Okay." He goes, "You just don't deserve nice things." And as a 5-year-old, it's like, I realized many, many years down the road, I believed him. And he didn't mean anything by it. I'm sure it was just a flippant comment. And looking back, it's like, I built a great business and then I lost it. I had great relationships and I lost it. I had a nice house and I lost it. I had a nice car and I lost it. And it's like, at a conscious level, I aspire to these nice things. And I aspire to having nice things, but my deep subconscious belief that's driving me is, you don't deserve nice things, Cody. I was told that as a 5-year-old and I believed it. And that drove the rest of my life up to my mid-30s or even later than that. And I'm thinking, why does everything turn pear-shaped? Why do I get what I want and then I lose it? Why can I get what I want, but I can't hang on to it? And the answer is because I've got this dichotomy between the conscious and the subconscious. The conscious is saying, you want it, go get it. And I'm taking the actions to go get it. But the subconscious is saying, you don't deserve it, lose it. So I get it, I lose it, I get it, I lose it, I get it, I lose it. And this is the battle between the unseen, right? This is the battle between the conscious and the unconscious mind. And I'm just the unwitting victim on the other side of it, on this roller coaster of a ride, having no idea what's going on.
It's like, yeah, absolutely.
And finally, when you examine it and go, what would I have to believe to keep losing this stuff? I would have to believe that I don't deserve it. I'd have to believe that I don't deserve nice things. You don't deserve nice things. Oh, okay. And it's like, I remember that now. I'd suppressed that, repressed that, forgotten that. It was buried deep down inside. And then once I asked that question, what would I have to believe? You'd have to believe you don't deserve nice things, Cody. Right. Now I know exactly where that belief came from. Now I know exactly what is driving my behavior. Now the next question is that true? No, it's not true. You do deserve nice things. You deserve the nicest of things. And the reality of the situation there is a 5-year-old was directing my life as an adult.
Yeah.
And a 5-year-old was making choices in my business. A 5-year-old was making choices in my marriage. A 5-year-old was guiding my finances. A 5-year-old was deciding whether I was going to have a drink and drive home.
Yeah.
A 5-year-old was making these choices. And we wonder why our lives are a mess, right?
Mm.
So a lot of times when you can see, when people go, I call it the stupid button. People go, I keep hitting the stupid button and I just don't know why. It's like, there's something buried in there that's causing you to do that.
Yeah.
And you don't have to know, like I was fortunate to know where it came from, which is great because it makes a good story, right? It makes this story relatable. It makes it understandable. If that has to be there for me to tell this story, but you don't have to understand where that's coming from in you. All you have to know is it true? I'd have to believe that I don't deserve nice things. Well, is that true? No. Okay. So what are we going to do? Are we going to throw that belief out, or are we going to continue to operate under it? Let's throw the 5-year-old's belief out and let's make a conscious, emotionally mature decision as a 40-year-old or a 50-year-old or whatever, and choose a different direction for our life at this point. So yeah, I mean, there was rapid transformation. That's when I wrote that book. I mean, people had no idea. People were like, who are you? 3 months, 4 months later, they're like, who are you? You're not the same person. And it's like, literally, again, it's like it's new DNA. I mean, I looked in the mirror and I go, you're a nice guy, but you're not getting the job done. You got to go. You're getting fired. I'm getting a new CEO into this life. And I fired the guy, the old me that was running that operating system, that was making the decisions. And I hired a new guy, which is the new me.
So is it, because it doesn't sound like in that moment, or for those 3 or 4 months, that you particularly sought outside help. You sort of did it internally.
No, I did.
Oh, you did seek outside help.
I did. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
But the change has to come internally, right? I mean, here's the thing, that what I tell my clients is like, you have to want the change more than you want anything else. You've got to want the change more than you want your holidays and your money. You've got to want this change more than you want your sleep. You've got to want this transformation more than you want the new car. You've got to want it more than you want anything, right? But at the same time, you've got to understand that you are the one that's going to bring about this transformation. If you think that I'm going to bring this transformation about for you, then this is not going to be a good relationship, because I can't. All I can do is guide you in the principles of change. You have to make the change.
Yeah.
So here's the thing, right? Here's how I know if somebody's going to get the transformation in their life. Do you want it more than anything else? Are you willing to? I'm in the middle of running a marriage retreat this week, and I'm running it worldwide. It's a virtual retreat. Some people want their sleep more than they want their marriage. Some people won't get up at 2:00 in the morning. And the one thing I always say is like, you've got to choose commitment over convenience. Are you going to choose commitment over convenience? Because if you are, you're going to get the result. If you're not, you're not. So the things that need to be present is like, do you want this more than anything? And are you committed to commitment over convenience? And then do you understand that you are the one that's going to have to make this change? You're going to have to make this change. I can't change for you. I can't go inside and make the changes internally for you. You have to do it. And thirdly, are you willing to do whatever it takes? Are you willing to do whatever it takes? So yeah, I became a ferocious reader, seminar, everything, man. It's like I bought every audiobook I could get. I bought every book I could get. I went to every seminar I could go to. I would listen to anybody that potentially had help, anybody. I didn't disregard anything, anyone, any belief system, anything. I'm like, if they're saying that they can help me, I'm going to give them a shot because I want help.
Yeah. But like you said, you still had this overriding driving force that you wanted to be different. You wanted to have way more than you'd been allowing yourself to experience. And that was driving you to then do all the other things to get the help and the guidance. So yes. you wrote that book quite quickly. And then
yes.
Was it from that book that you then decided you wanted to do this work? Is that how how quickly you got into this sort of work?
Well, funny story, Mal. Yeah, I wrote that book in 2006. It became a bestseller in 2017. It sat on my hard drive. It sat on my hard drive for many, many years, over a decade, because I didn't have the self-belief. But yes, what happened was, once I went through that change and like my life was just radically different. I mean, I was a different person. It's like, it was formulaic. I had the system, I had the process, and like obviously people were asking me, how did you do that? Can you share that? Yada yada yada. And I started a business called Dream Life Coaching, which is actually still online today. The website's still online. That was 2007, but I didn't have the skills business wise and marketing wise to make it work, which is kind of like was kind of like the catalyst for the next phase, which was like Cody, the marketing consultant phase of my life, because I just couldn't make it work financially. I couldn't make the coaching, the marriage coaching, the relationship coaching, the personal development. I didn't have the wherewithal to make it financially viable. And what happened was, my wife's Australian, but she was in England and her visa was getting ready to expire. We wanted to get married. We applied for a marriage visa. She was back in Australia at this point. We were separated, no visas. And we got turned down. Like we got turned down for marriage visas because I had no income. Like I had no money from the life coaching business, and I was a musician, and that was mostly cash. So I was showing like literally like the only income I had was like $8,000 or $9,000 that I made teaching. Was something like, it was a ridiculously small amount of money, and the government said, you can't support her. You know, we're not going to let her back in the country on your $9,000 a year or £9,000 income, whatever it is, because we're going to end up paying for her. So no, you're not getting a marriage visa. So I was forced into a job, and the job that I went into was with a marketing agency. And that was just, I didn't choose that. I didn't say that this is the direction I want to go. And I'm just like, what's the most viable income for me at this point? Where can I get a job that's going to get me the money to get the visa approved? And the marketing agency was where I ended up. And I ended up being very good at it. I ended up being very good at the marketing side. I think it comes very naturally to me. I'm very naturally a marketer. My dad was a salesman, and I grew up around salespeople, and I grew up around that stuff. And it's like language, right? It's like a language. It's my first language. I speak it fluently. So I quickly found out that I was very good at marketing, and I saw what that marketing agency was charging clients for the services that I was delivering.
Yeah.
And within 6 months, I had my own marketing business, and I was making almost 200 grand a year.
Wow.
So I switched into that version of myself, that chapter of my life, quite ironically. And I didn't choose it, but it turned, once you start making that kind of money, it's like, I didn't really think, well, I'm going to stop doing that and go do something else. It was like, it was the good times were rolling now.
What was the marketing you were doing? Because back in 2007, 2008, that was before Google did their big penguin update. I think was the first
exactly.
One.
2012 that happened. Yeah.
Was it 12? Was it? Yeah. Because I used to work for a website directory. That was getting 12 to 15,000 individual visitors a day.
Yeah.
I think it got hit down to 10. Yeah. I don't know what it got hit down to, but Google all of a sudden
could have been nothing. Yeah.
Hey.
Could have gone down, and exactly. I mean, it was SEO. It was the same thing. I was offering SEO services, and that went on until 2012, and then the Penguin update hit, and again, it's like time for a new version of Cody. Time for a reiteration of Cody again. So that's where
I presume you got to Australia in that time.
Yeah, well, no, I had a visa. She was back in the UK.
Oh, okay.
And we moved to Australia in 2015 when she was pregnant with our first son. We decided that would be the place to get married or to raise our son was in Australia. So we moved to Australia in 2015. So yeah, I was in the UK at that time.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay. So bloody hell, 6 months, 200 grand.
But then I did it, I did that again. It's like, I went from 200,000 to $1 million in a similar time frame again. It's like, there's no limit. There's no limit to what we can do. Yeah. So that forced me to shift, right? I went from like offering services to businesses where I'm doing the work and delivering the result to where like when Penguin hit, it's like, I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be responsible for the result. I want to coach them to get the result, and then they're responsible for the result. So what I was able to do was I was quite limited in providing the service, because obviously I've got to deliver the service, and I am responsible for that work manually. Whereas when I switched to coaching, I had unlimited leverage. I could work with the way I had it set up. I could literally work with, I think in 2015, I worked with probably 1,700 businesses. So was able to leverage up again from a couple of 100,000 to $1 million And, you know, I'm not saying that because it's impressive or anything like that. I'm saying that because, like, the only thing that's stopping you or stopping me or stopping anybody from doing this is what's between your ears. There's nothing stopping you from doing it. It's like, it's available to you. It's accessible to you. It's, do you believe you can do it?
Yeah.
And what, again, if you're not doing it, what would you have to believe to achieve that? If you're not making $1 million a year right now, what would you have to believe to not be doing that? Well, I'd have to believe that I don't have enough value. I would have to believe that I'm not worth enough. I'd have to believe I'm not good enough. BS, 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 BS. Yeah. I am good enough. I do have enough value. I am worth it. It's like that. Those are the beliefs that are going to stop you. It's got nothing to do with the technical ability that you need to go to a much, much higher income level. Is you can achieve that in one book. You can achieve that in 1 week of education. You only need to be one step ahead of the person you're talking to.
Yeah.
That's all you need to be, is one step ahead of the person you're talking to.
So, okay, so you're in a way better position now. You've got a thriving marketing consulting business or coaching business. And now when does the next Cody come in?
Yeah, that's probably around 2017, 2018, where the business was absolutely thriving. I mean, we're doing $1 million a year at that point, most of it profit. You know, living in arguably the best city in the world, great climate, all the money in the world, sun, sand, surf, beautiful wife, beautiful kids, beautiful everything. I'm just miserable. It's like I'm throwing up every morning. Again, I get up and I'm so full of anxiety. I'm throwing up as I get up in the morning, and I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. It's like Tony Robbins says, success without fulfillment is the ultimate fate. And it's like, here I am, I've got all the success in the world, but I'm empty inside again. It's like, I've unintentionally gone down this route, right? It's like, I've gone from being a life coach, relationship coach, to being a marketing executive, to being an SEO executive, to being a marketing coach. And it's like, none of those were really intentional choices. It was kind of like, it was the path of least resistance. And it's like, okay, well, when the SEO apocalypse hit, I'm like, well, I've got this income and I don't want to give that up. I've got this lifestyle and I don't want to give that up. So what is the next logical iteration to continue that and expand it? And that was kind of my driving thoughts and my driving focus. And at the end of the day, Mel, the thing that I've come to realize, which is why I am 100% into marriage coaching now, is your business works on you harder than you work on it. Your business will work on you much harder than you work on your business. So you better choose a business, right? And it's like, when you're in a business which is like more money, it's bling, bling, bling. You've seen the ads on Facebook. It's like, look at the car, look at the jewelry, look at the lifestyle, look at the beach, look at the hotel, look at the private jet. It's like, that's what that community is. That's what that environment is. And in light of what I've just said, which is your business works on you harder than you work on it, that is going to work on me. And it's like, more money, you know, more status, more awards, more this, more that. And before you know it, it's like, it's almost like this facade that you show in the outside world. You've got this Facebook, Instagram life that is real. It is real. You do have those things, but on the other side of it, you're completely empty. You're completely miserable. And what I say when I work with people now that are wanting to go into the coaching business, that want to go into the consulting business, it's like, the transformation that you're actually offering is the state of mind that you have. That's what you're offering. It's like, would somebody give you $10,000? Would somebody give you $20,000 to take your state of mind and own it? And at that point, I'm like, people wouldn't give me $1 for this. Because what I'm teaching these people is what I've got right now, which is throwing up every morning. It's being miserable. And at that point, I really started to self-sabotage. I started making really bad decisions. I started to lose the money, not intentionally, but looking back now, it's like I intentionally started to lose the money, and got to a point really where I almost took a couple of years off. I had enough stored productivity to where I could take some time off, and I didn't stop working, but I didn't really have much focus or direction. And then finally I came back and I'm like, I'm not going to do anything that doesn't satisfy me. And in light of the fact that my business works on me harder than I work on my business, I'm going to choose a business that benefits me this time. So I'm going to go back to my first love, which is relationship coaching. I have the skills now to promote that. I have the skills now, you know, and people go, I talk to people all the time and they say, what do you do, coach? I'm a relationship coach. And they go, oh, you better make sure your life's in order then, hadn't you? And I'm like, exactly right. That is exactly right. That is 100% right, and that is why I'm doing it. I want that accountability from the world. I want that judgment from the world, because I need that, because I'm flawed. And if I don't have that accountability is going to keep me doing the right thing. And it's like every day now, I'm obsessed with how can I get better results in marriages? How can I get better? That's my obsession. That's the I don't have any books immediately at hand, but like those are the books that I'm reading. Those are the courses I'm taking. Those are the classes I'm taking. Those are the videos I'm watching. Whereas before it was like, how to add another $1 million to your business, how to make more money, how to do this. And it's just like, I have to say, like, at this point, again, I'm like, would people pay money for me to transplant my mindset into their mind? At this point, I'm like, I'm happy again. I think so. I'm happy again. So that was kind of that transition there. Money without happiness, money without fulfillment is a waste of time. Like, and it's not an either or decision. Now, this is where a lot of people go wrong too. They're like, you don't have to choose the money or the happiness, but you have to be intentional about the design of your life. And for the longest time, I just said, I want the money. Well, to start with, I just said, I want the happiness, right? And then I said, I want the money. I thought it was an either or scenario, but now I'm a little bit more evolved emotionally. I realized that it's not an either or, it's both. Do you want to be happy or do you want the money, Cody? I want both. Do you want steak or lobster? I want both.
So you took some time out, and then you sort of came full circle and realized you needed to do something that's going to fulfill you, basically, that you give a shit about.
Yeah, exactly right.
So how did that start? I mean, you've already got these amazing marketing skills that, which is like the gold nugget really for most people starting out, because they don't know how to find clients. They don't know how
get those skills.
Exactly. So what did you do? Just sort of go online and attract people, or was it a bit different for you?
Well, I'd always that's the thing. Like, I've still got a fair few business one-to-one clients where they hired me in a business consulting role, and it always turns into a personal development relationship coaching situation, because you're only going to perform as well as you're performing at home.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, like, it's the canary in the coal mine, right? So I talk to people and they say, I'm giving everything to my business. I'm giving everything. I'm like, all right, well, let's look at that statement. You're giving everything you've got. Let's evaluate that in the truth of how you do anything is how you do everything, right? How you do anything is how you do everything. You're either all in or you're all out. You're half-assed or you're not. It's like you can't be half-assed in some things. It's like you're all in or you're all out. You're all or nothing. That's the way we are. And I'm like, are you giving everything you can give at home to your wife? Or are there times where there's words you could give her that you don't? Are there times when you could do something to make the difference and you don't? You could bring some flowers home. You could do something that is going to make a difference, that's going to radically increase her satisfaction within the relationship, yet you don't. And the answer always is yes. I'm like, your business is the same. I'm like, you're missing, it's the 5% that makes the 95% work. It's like, I always say, like, when you're in a relationship, you're dealing with confirmation bias. This is your enemy in a relationship. It's confirmation bias. It's not the 99 things you do right. It's the one thing you do wrong. Whatever the confirmation bias is, it's not, you can get 99 things right and one thing wrong. You got to get 100 things right, because that confirmation bias has got a hair trigger on it. And you're going, well, I did this right. I did that right. Blah, 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 blah. It's like, it doesn't matter. You got one thing right and that confirmed her bias. Or you got one thing wrong and that confirmed her bias. And that's the way it is, right? Her perception is reality, or his perception is reality. So it's like, it's the 5% that makes the 95% work. It's not the 95% you're doing right. It's the 5% you're missing. And I'm like, if you're missing the 5% at home, you're missing the 5% in your business. You're just too emotionally involved to see it. And then it's like, wow, that's really, that I can see that. That's right. And then it's like, okay. And then it's like, we start talking about their relationship. And then ultimately it's like, okay, now, because business is just relationships. That's all it is. I'm like, if you're missing the 5% that makes the 95% work at home, you're missing the 5% that makes the 95% work in your business as well. And it always comes back to that. So in a business context, it's like the limitation in the business is always the business owner. Always. If your business is not where it wants to be, the limitation is you. I mean, I don't know that much about, it's like, it's the same with everybody, right? It's like, are there people that are making multiple millions of dollars in your field? you know, whatever excuse you can come up with, whatever excuse I can come up with, the market won't pay that, it's like we're in a recession, blah blah blah, whatever excuse, jibber jabber story. There are people in my field making millions and millions of dollars. There are people in your field making millions and millions of dollars. So it can be done. The limitation that's stopping us from doing that, and quite often it's people less talented than us, right?
Yeah.
That was my big frustration for a long time. I'm like, people that have less value and making more money. Well, I'm the limitation, I'm the bottleneck. You're the limitation, you're the bottleneck, right? And it's the same. It's the same in a marriage. It's the same in a relationship. The bottleneck in your marriage is you. The bottleneck in your relationship is you. And it's like, the good thing is, once you recognize that and you understand these key concepts like confirmation bias, right? That we're all working off a confirmation bias. It's not the 99 things we do right. It's the one thing we do wrong. That everything matters. Everything. You know, that's what people don't get. It's not like you can get it right most of the time. It's like, no. Everything matters. Everything. Because it's a little thing. You're being tested right now and you don't even know it. She's testing you, he's testing you, and you don't even know it, buddy. You don't even know it, my friend. It's like, so trust me, everything matters.
It's very true. It's very true. But we are human at the same time, Cody.
We are.
So people listening are like, yeah, okay, I'll get you. But, you know, there are days, we have bad days, you know, we have, I don't know, too much to drink or whatever, you know, which creates terrible rows and, you know, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So what?
Well, again, that kind of leads to the alcohol thing, doesn't it? It's like, you know, I would say, like, if alcohol is causing problems in your relationship, well, that's, you know, let's address that. It's like for me personally, I can't just overlook that. Like, coming from my background and my situation, I can't just go, oh, you know, I'm having some drinks and it's causing problems. I can't overlook that. That is the issue that needs to be addressed, right? So I'm not saying that's the problem with you, but like, from my perspective, it's like having that kind of flippant skip over it, like, oh, we do this and we have a row and yada yada yada. It's like, okay, well, what can we do to fix that? Is that absolutely necessary? And having those fail safes in place, yeah, because of course we're human, of course we're going to mess up, but that's where, like, we've got to have emotional security and safety within the relationship to where that element is there. Right? It's not literally like a tiny little screw up and you're done, but it's like, I guess my point is, it's like the details matter more than you think they do. The little things are having more impact. That I call them the small hinges that swing the big doors. It's the little details that are the small hinges that swing the big doors, that produce the disproportionate amounts of reward for effort. A lot of times this amount of effort can produce this amount of reward if you know what you're doing.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because, yeah, I mean, it sort of reminds me a little bit of Mars and Venus, the book, in terms of...
Yeah, it's a good book.
This point scoring thing going on, and, you know, and
it's
largely subconscious, but it's there and it's ever present, isn't it? And yeah, I don't think, like, sometimes you can end up in an altercation or a row or a heated conversation, and the other person's going, where the hell is this coming from? But it's stored up stuff, isn't it?
Well, that's spot on. I mean, I'll give you a good example. Like, we went to stay with the in-law family down in Sydney for Christmas, and I had a major blowout. Like, I had a major blowout with the mother-in-law. It's like, I was the one that blew up, not her. And my wife's like, I want to know what was said. I really want to know. So I'm not going to tell you, because if I tell you, you're going to go, seriously, that was the reaction over that. I said, the problem is, that was 10 years. Like, there was 10 years of history there. There was 10 years of snide comments, backhanded comments, sarcasm, insults. There was 10 years of where I just let it slide and let it slide and let it slide in the name of peace. And it's like, I just couldn't let it slide this time. And it's like, she didn't get the response that was given was not proportional to the provocation.
Yeah.
So if I tell you what was said, it's going to make you even madder at me than you are right now. And I think that's what you're saying, right? It's like, you're not getting a proportional response, because you're not getting the response to what you just did. You're getting the response to the 10,000 things you've done over the last 10 years. Yeah. Today is the day you're going to find out. Woe to you, my friend.
Yeah. You and the mother-in-law okay now?
Yeah, we made up. Good. But that, yeah, it's just a good example, isn't it? It's like, and that's where, you know, there's got to be, I mean, one of the things that I teach in the marriage recovery program is there's got to be that emotional safety and security to where if you and I were in a relationship and I've annoyed you, you can bring that up. And it's like, we don't allow the monster to turn into a full-grown beast. We do battle with the monster while it's a baby, because we can take the monster out while he's a baby. We're more than capable to do that. But if we allow that monster to grow into a full-grown beast, it's going to take us out, or at least it's going to do collateral damage in the fight. And the only way you can do that, the only way you can take the monster out when it's a baby, is you've got to have emotional safety and security in the relationship. If you don't have that, you're doomed, because at some point the suppression will become an expression. Yeah. And it may not be in the form of, like, you know, maybe someone never verbally gives it, but it's going to express itself in the form of disease. It's going to express itself in the form of habits forming addictions. It's going to express itself in the form of negativity. It's like, it is going to come out, and it is going to be damaging for sure.
So when you're doing the relationship coaching, it's basically teaching how to be emotionally secure and stable within that relationship. And obviously you're coaching both parties in the marriage.
Yes.
When you're doing the substance abuse, are you just coaching men, or again, is that both parties? Or
so it's not just men. I mean, it's predominantly men, because I am a man. So it's like, you know, I can go up to a man. I can just be like, you know, cut the shit, dude.
Yeah.
I've been there, dude. I know what's going on. Like, you lie to your friends, I'll lie to my friends, and we'll tell the truth to each other. Is that a deal? It's like, yeah, I can have that kind of relationship, so I can get to the core of it really quickly. And it's like, especially when they can see that I have been where they are, then that immediately establishes that bond and rapport and trust, and I'm able to reach them much quicker and at a much deeper level. So the healing takes place faster. So it just makes sense. But also, it's like, there's the other side of that as well, right? I mean, I definitely do work with women, but there's the damage that it's doing in the relationship. So when we're talking about the alcohol or substance abuse within the relationship, it still all relates back to there are three core tenets of a relationship that have to be present. And those three things are emotional safety and security, mutual admiration and respect, and a shared vision and goal. If we don't have mutual admiration and respect, what have we got? If you don't like me, like even right now, Mel, to have this interview, we've got to have a certain level of mutual admiration and respect to have to make this conversation. Our relationship is in its infancy. It's a newborn. It's less than an hour old. Yet we still have to have, if we didn't have shared vision and goals, you know, if we didn't have a common goal, shared vision, we couldn't have this relationship, because why would we talk to each other? If we didn't have mutual respect, we wouldn't be able to have this conversation, because why would we? Like, if I don't like you, or you don't like me, if you go, I just don't like your attitude, Cody, it's like, you're not gonna want to talk to me. Or if I'm aggressive to you, or verbally abusive to you, or vice versa, there's got to be that emotional safety and security to where, you know, right now we're having a very honest conversation, right? It's because we have that emotional security at this point.
Yeah.
I haven't attacked you, you haven't attacked me. So all three of those elements are present, and we have a successful relationship. Now, any one of those elements could be challenged on this call, and our relationship would end if they were challenged, right? Or the relationship would certainly be challenged. So you can see, even with a newborn relationship, those elements have to be present. And if they're not, the relationship will fail. So everything that happens in the relationship is then related back to those core tenets of the relationship. So it's like your alcohol abuse or your substance abuse. How is this impacting the emotional security? How is this impacting the shared vision and goals? How is this impacting the mutual respect and admiration for each other? Because you can, like, I was terrible, man. I was terrible. Like in my relationship, I was terrible. I'd go into a restaurant, I'd literally throw a plate on the floor if I didn't like the food in a restaurant. You know, I go into a restaurant and I'd have a cup of coffee, and I literally just throw it against the wall. I'm like, what is this? You're going to serve me this? I mean, that's how I was when I was drinking. I mean, you talk about, like, you know, bad news. I was not a good person drinking, not a good person. But it's not that I've thrown the cup against the wall or I've dropped the plate on the floor. It's like, how has that affected the core tenets? How has that affected emotional security? Let's relate that back. How has that impacted the mutual respect and admiration? It's destroying it. How is that? Because I can be doing things like under the influence of alcohol, and it's not necessarily impacting those three things. It's not necessarily, it might be negative in terms of, like, you know, certain aspects of life or whatever, but it's like, it's not necessarily impacting those three things. So every aspect of the relationship, every aspect of your behavior has to be related back to those three things. And you have to ask yourself, with every behavior, am I building emotional security? Am I building mutual admiration and respect? Am I building a shared vision goal, or am I destroying it? Because every action you take is building those things up or destroying them.
Yeah.
And when you help somebody understand, it's like when you can help, if they care about the relationship, when you can, they say, well, a lot of people say, what, they're in such a self-destructive state at that point. They're like, it's just me, I'm just harming myself. It's like, well, okay, well, are you? Because how much admiration and respect does she have for you with that attitude? Like, where's the shared vision? Is the shared vision for you just to get, pissed up and go off and drink yourself? Is that the shared vision right now? Like, how can she feel emotionally secure with you when she can't talk to you because you're drunk and you're liable to respond? You might respond as a 2-year-old, you might respond as a comedian, or you might respond as a heavyweight fighter. You're unpredictable, you're unstable. It's like your behavior is destroying every aspect. We've got to relate it back to those aspects of the core tenets of the relationship. And everything you do in your relationship is either building up or destroying those core tenets. So the secret really is to become emotionally aware, have the emotional intelligence to know what impact your behavior is having, what aspects of the relationship. In business, you've got to know, right? It's like if you spend money on advertising, you've got to know what impact that has on the bottom line. If you hire somebody, you've got to know what impact that has on productivity. You have to know what the cause and effect relationship. You have to understand that, or you're not going to succeed. Every cause has or every action has a equal but opposite reaction. There's cause and effect. You have to understand what effects your actions are having, and if you don't, you're going to fail. And most people have absolutely no idea, right? They have absolutely no idea, and again, like, in the nicest possible way, I can say not any judgment whatsoever, but like if someone came to me and said what you said about, you go out and you have a few drinks and you have fun. I'm like, well, okay, well, that's fine. If you want to do that, that's fine. No judgment. I did that for many years, right? But let me ask you a question. Have you considered how that's impacting emotional safety? Have you considered how that's impacting the mutual respect? Have you considered what that's doing to the vision and goals? And in light of now understanding the impact, is that behavior really worth it, or is it too expensive? Because I would suggest that that behavior is too expensive if you care about your relationship. It costs more than you think it does. And again, that's just truth, right? We're just shining light into the situation. We're just saying, okay, I'm going to behave however I want to behave. I'm a grown up, I'm an adult. I'm very conservative in my own beliefs, but I'm very liberal in my philosophies, right? You can do whatever you want to do with your body. Well, I have no judgment. I have no, I respect any decision you make with your body in your life, because I'm liberal in how I treat other people, right? But I'm conservative in my own views, but it doesn't matter. So you can do whatever you want. But understand, my job really, if I'm coaching you, is to help you understand the cost of your behavior. There's a cost associated with it. And do you know that cost? Because once you know the cost, then you're making an informed decision. Now you're behaving like an adult. I know what it costs. I know what the long-term consequences are. I'm going to make a decision to do it anyway. And that's when I couldn't do it anymore. I'm like, now I'm aware of the cost. Now I'm aware of what this is going to cost me. It's too expensive. I'm not willing to foot that bill. And then change like that, instant.
Did you completely stop drinking, or is it just...
Yep.
Yeah, you did completely stop.
Yep.
And is that what you advise all your clients as well?
Look, I mean, it's going to happen for you. Like if you get to the point to where you realize what the cost of the drinking is, like people don't know what the cost is. They simply don't know what the cost is. They're oblivious to it. They've buried it deep, or they've just not thought about it. They don't know what the cost is. And it's like when we actually get to the bottom of that and go, again, what I've just said, it's like, okay, I have no judgment over you. I have no judgment. I'm very liberal in how I address and view other people. Do what you want. Whatever you do, I respect. I'm not the type of person that says you have to believe what I believe. You need to have my values. I'm not like that. Like, I respect your views and values, but I want you to get to the point where you understand the cost. And it's like, when you understand that drinking is going to cost you everything, do you want to foot that bill? And most people, when they actually truly understand it, the bill is too expensive. They just don't want to pay it anymore. They just don't want to pay it anymore. They realize, and then the drinking just stops. Now, if you're cutting back on the drinking, it's like, well, you don't really understand what the cost is yet. You're half in, half out. You kind of got an idea, right? Like, because alcohol is there was a study done. I'm not big on statistics and studies. I read them, but I don't memorize them. Drugs, prescription and illegal, and prescription were rated in terms of damaging effects, in terms of the damage that it has on society, damage that it has on the individual, damage that it has in the family unit, and damage that it does all around in general. Alcohol was the highest on the list with like a score of like 81. Heroin was 57. Cocaine was like 55. When you look at those studies, alcohol is absolutely the most damaging substance. It's highly addictive. You know, people go, I'm not addicted to alcohol. Well, you're still drinking. How do you know? How do you know you're not addicted to it? You're drinking. You're just drinking and going, I'm not addicted. I could stop at any time. How do you know you could stop? Because you've stopped for a week to convince yourself, to delude yourself so you can keep going. It's like you're saying that you can stop drinking, yet you are still drinking. you don't know. You don't understand the cost. You don't understand the damage. And it's like my job is just to keep going and keep going and keep going until it's like all the cards are on the table. I've shown you reality. I've held the mirror up now, and you can see what your future is if you continue down this path. Now you make the decision. And some people will just go, don't care. I'm just gonna. It's like, what was it like leaving Las Vegas with Nicolas Cage, where he just went to a hotel. He just wanted to go to a hotel room and drink himself to death. The whole movie was him drinking himself to death in a hotel room. Some people want to do that. They just want to go off and drink themselves to death. Other people, once they actually see the cost of what it's going to cost them, that's it. It's instant. So it's a decision that everybody has to make, but most people will make the decision to stop, in my experience, if I'm doing my job.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Cody. This has been, can't believe it's been an hour. This has been really enlightening. And it's been a pleasure to meet you. You are a very,
thank you.
You seem like a very gentle, warm soul, and I know that in your 20s maybe you weren't that, but with the drink, but that's how you come across to me anyway. So
thank you. I do my best.
If people want to find out more about you or are interested in working with you, where's the best place for them to go?
Probably bettermarriage.com.au. That's probably the best place to find me. That's going to give you all the contact detail. You can find me on Facebook. I don't try to hide. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. Connect with me on Facebook. But yeah, bettermarriage.com.au is a good place. You can reach me at Cody at bettermarriage.com.au. Oh, sorry, Cody at bettermarriage.co. That's the email address, Cody at bettermarriage.co. If you want to reach out personally and have a conversation with me, absolutely, 100% more than happy to sit down and have a jibber jabber.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And I always like to finish these conversations with anything you feel drawn to share to the visitors, to the listeners, even.
Yeah, so it's two things really. As long as there's breath in your body, there's hope. So I don't care where you are right now. I don't care like how bad it is, how dark it is, how much you're suffering, what you've done. It doesn't matter to me. I'm telling you, as long as there's breath in your body, there is hope, there's reconciliation. Don't ever give up, and you're a lot closer to where you think. You're a lot closer to where you want to be than you think. So take that hope away. And the second thing is don't limit yourself by giving yourself labels and names. You can be whatever you want to be, and you can be as many things as you want to be. You don't have to be Cody the doctor or Cody the lawyer or Cody the the podcast host. You can be many things to many people simultaneously, and you don't have to limit yourself. And that really, to me, is the key to having a fulfilled life, is wearing those multiple hats and having those multiple roles to where you're fulfilling every aspect that really lights your fire, so to speak.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much again. I know that the listeners are going to love this conversation, and it's been an absolute pleasure to meet you.
Thank you so much for having me, Mel. I've enjoyed talking to you as well.